Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the organizing NGOs, I welcome you to this side event on the human rights defender situation in the United Arab Emirates. And now I will give the floor to Mrs. Legner, who will present maybe some more concrete cases that happened in the United Arab Emirates. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll be speaking a little bit more about the human rights violations that we've documented under these laws, the cybercrime law, the anti-terrorism law, and the new amendments to the penal code. So over the recent years, we've seen a clear deterioration in the human rights situation in the United Arab Emirates. As a human rights organization documenting cases of enforced disappearance, arbitrary detention, and torture, Alkarama has documented dozens of cases of lawyers, teachers, human rights defenders, and anyone critical to the authorities, merely for really making use of their right, their fundamental right to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. So usually it's the state security forces that are under the control of the Ministry of Interior, and they're not subjected to any legal oversight, which are responsible for the arrest of an individual. And we then witness a series of chain violations, usually starting with an arrest of someone without an arrest warrant or informing them of the reasons for their arrest. They're then being held in solitary confinement or secret detention for prolonged periods of time without access to a lawyer or access to their families. And this time they're then often subjected to acts of torture in order to extract confessions that can later be used at court against them. And in particular, human rights defenders are often tried before the State Security Chamber of the Federal Supreme Court, which is known for gross violations of fair trial guarantees. And as mentioned before, the tools that are used to crack down on activists and human rights defenders are usually the law or the anti-terrorism law, which also provides an extremely broad definition of terrorism, the cybercrime law, which criminalizes defamation and slander and provides for harsh prison sentences of up to life imprisonment for anyone who establishes, manages, or runs a website or publishes information aiming or calling to overthrow or just to change the regime. And recently also we've seen the amendment of the criminal code or the penal code, which now has even more provisions that severely curtail the right to freedom of expression. And so as we've seen, the independent expert and former special reporter on the independence of judges and lawyers, Ms. Gabriela Knaul, has visited the UAE on an official visit in 2014 and afterwards expressed her great concern regarding incommunicado detention and the use of torture in the United Arab Emirates. She stated that even though the criminal code or procedure code prescribes the need for an arrest warrant, many people are arrested without a warrant, and particularly in cases of national security. Regarding the work of lawyers, she said that an accused person often has very restricted access to a lawyer, and again that applies mostly in situations of state security crimes, and even the lawyers encounter difficulties in accessing their clients' files. And many of the hearings are not being held in public. Furthermore, some lawyers that are taking up state security cases have even themselves been harassed, threatened, and pressured and been considered disloyal to the state. What we've seen in the most recent times, just another example of a crackdown on freedom of expression in relation to the Gulf crisis, has been when the UAE Attorney General announced that the expression of sympathy towards Qatar could actually be punished with 3 to 15 years of imprisonment or a monetary fine, whether that is on social media platform or via any written or spoken medium, and this will also be prosecuted under the cybercrime law.
My name is Fresh Finish. I'm a former UN staff. No, my question is about dialogue. Is there any contact, any dialogue between NGOs or human rights defenders in the Emirates and NGOs here with the authorities? Is there any kind of contact and dialogue to have some common understanding of what we can do to improve the human rights situation in the Emirates? Thank you.
Maybe I'll answer to that or give some insight into the experience that we've made. I mean, as part of civil society, I think in general we would be very open to be in touch with the authorities, to see to understand their perspective, and to find a way to maybe enhance the human rights situations from both sides. However, the experience that we've made with the UAE shows that so far has not bared any fruits or has not been very successful. We also see that, I mean, we usually communicate cases of human rights violations to the UN human rights mechanisms, which also give the state a possibility to answer to allegations. And what we've seen a lot in the past is that the authorities were reluctant to provide any answers. And when they provide answers, they're insufficient, or they're basically denying allegations. And that has so far not really given us the opportunity to engage productively in a dialogue with the authorities. Yet I would like to say that we're very open to that. I think also that goes back to that question we've heard before in terms of the interaction with the authorities. What we would really like to see as well in the beginning, or what could also help the whole process, is more active interaction with the UN. As I've said, the experience that we've made is that often the response to individual cases and individual allegations of human rights violations are not responded to in a sufficient manner. And also, I mean, for the treaty that it has ratified, the CAT recently, the authorities are late 3 years in submitting their report. And when it comes to visits of special reporters that would be relevant, such as freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, human rights defenders, we would also welcome to see some proactiveness by the government to really cooperate with the UN.